The Boys, Season 5, Episode 8, the final episode of the show. And what I would say here is this: I get it, for a lot of people, this season isn't satisfying for them as the final season. Even though it's like clearly it's a test of can you, in a streaming situation, when we used to the format of a TV show that's on a streaming service, can you use the logic and the storytelling technique that is applied to network television? Which is you don't treat your final season as the final season until maybe the second to last episode, maybe even the last episode. That you treat it as this is the final season, and maybe little bits and pieces here and there, like characters who normally would have plot armor don't have plot armor anymore. Those situations like, oh, Firecracker dies and Black Kawad dies, and who's only left? It's Homeland and Demon. That's it. And Frenchie dies. Like, because it's the final season, you can do that kind of stuff, but you still treat it like it's a regular episode or a regular season of television. I guess the idea behind that was in case newcomers came in, on the final season who didn't know it was the final season, so to make them feel welcoming and have them, um, not feeling lost or feel, um, excluded of watching a season of television, even though it was the final season. My guess that was the mindset back then. But it's interesting to see the reaction to that, to 8 episodes, and to streaming services. And maybe it's the idea, if you're not used to that, you're like thinking, what the hell, right? So that's probably why for a lot of people it feels quite disappointing, or how it's a setup, and stuff to character work. You have 4 seasons of that, even though to make you care about what's happening in the final season, you need to care. You need character work in that as well. So there's that type of situation going on. But I would say this: I even if you are not a fan of the whatever the amount of episodes that you are not a fan of this season, they stick the we all have to agree they stick the landing with this episode. They stick the landing with the finale. Like, I get a lot of people were concerned with 65 minutes. Like, my guess was so used to, like, Stranger Things had the 2 hour finale, and we was so used to hearing like Game of Thrones had like what, like a 70 minute, 90 minute finale. We're so used to these big giant finales that were like that were like a movie length, right? So hearing 65 minutes, you go, what the hell is this? Like, how are you gonna wrap so much up in 65 minutes? And what it is kind of a situation of, if you're a good writer, you can cram a lot of stuff in without making it feel rushed. And that's what this episode is. It is some damn good writing, some really good character work in this episode with, Kirimo. I mean, everyone's dealing with, the aftermath of the death of Frenchie, but in reality, Kirimo is the one is the most affected, because this is the man that she loved is no longer there. She had a plan of dogs in Paris, and having children with Frenchie, but he's not there anymore. So she feels lost, and she's grieving, and she's quiet, goes back to her quiet self because she's grieving, and all that kind of stuff. And you had those kind of the moments, or even character, I don't know, character reveals is probably the right term, but I'm not like character, trying to find the right word, like a confirmation, you know character confirmation, or character happiness through sadness. Like, I'm going to spoil this episode, so spoiler, spoiler. When, like, Sister Sage loses her powers, she's like, yippee, because we found out last week, her having to be the smartest person on Earth is a balance, because no one, essentially, you're alone because you make everyone A, feel stupid, and two, you you have a hard time connecting with people. You have a real hard time connecting with people, and so the moment she is no longer intelligent and isn't the smartest person alive, she's immediately like, let's go to Orlando and go to the Harry Potter section. Ones, bitches. She's, or saying the dumbest stuff ever. Not, because she's so used to, like, pepping her opinion in, but she's not helping. She's not sharing any insight because but you could tell there's a level of happiness that the big brain that she has is not there anymore. So there's a level of happiness there. You got even happy audience satisfaction with the Deep. I mean, the Deep is like the character that is kind of like the most question mark because, like, I don't know the best way to describe it. They try to make the Deep. I think what it is, give the Deep the false adjustment arc. Like, give A-Train got the full, like, villain or like asshole superhero who went over Wobbin that starts this whole show off, but at the same time, but you have the Deep, who is an asshole, who ends up being the asshole and showing how authentic he is. This is what this is happening because by the end of the last scene that we see in Homelander, it's the same situation. It is seeing these two guys who act so fucking tough, showing how fucking insecure these two characters are. Like the Deep, like the moment Annie is like, hey, like, why, like, Homelander doesn't give a shit about you. Just move on. And, like, the aesthetic, I couldn't help but laugh. The aesthetic no that he's swinging, it's like, no! And he just shouts and, continues, to fight with Starlight. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, you just keep showing your colors. He doesn't want to accept it. He's always in denial. He wants to be number two. He always wants to be number two. And it's just one of these wacky situations that happens in this episode. And when he meets his end, I mean, look, I know there was some links about him surviving. Clearly he doesn't. He had I assume an octopus going up, octopus tentacle up his ass and stabs him right through the mouth. So he's gone. In that, and then you have this big fight, and it's I think for like a show with the boys who, let's be honest, doesn't have the biggest budget ever. That was a satisfying, I think, a final showdown. I think that was a satisfying finale, a finale fight with Wayne showing up. But when he loses his powers and Butcher beats the crap out of Homelander's just pathetic. Like, everyone talks about Homelander being, you're insecure, you're this and this and this. It is a billow question. It is basically the line, take the powers away, what makes you? He is just this insecure, pathetic, like he begs his life. Because he knows all the shit he has done, he's not there anymore. All the shit he has done, he can't offend himself. He can't just lace the people off. He can't just fly away. He can't do any of that. And so he's at the mercy of it to make sure he doesn't get killed. And of course, Butcher's like, fuck you, you killed Frenchie. You killed, what's it? Kylie, the wife, Butcher's wife. I forgot her name. And the death itself is satisfying. because it's not the most gruesome death. I mean, it's gross, but it's not the most gruesome death. But because it's showing his true colors, makes it all satisfying, and the whole world gets to see it, knowing how the I am Homelander, I am who I am, and it's like, yeah, but you're thinking, he's people got to see what A-Train saw at the beginning of this season, why he was laughing, and the begging, that's what he saw. And I was like, this is great and all that. Now, the last 20 minutes, which I was like curious how long do we have left of this episode. I was like, 20 minutes, okay, let's see how this goes. And I was like, having Butcher kind of saying to himself, kind of what's next, and his thing of what's next is blow up Vought, kind of showing that there's never an end. Like he's on this mission, and even though the whole mission was stop Homelander, and now Homelander is gone, it gives you the question of now what's next. And he's like, I need to stop them making the new Homelander. There always will be a new Homelander, and we need to stop Vought doing it. Which I also immediately said to myself, like, well, what stops someone getting the V and get superpowers? What someone's going, even Vought burned to the ground, someone's going to create heroes. And there's got to be someone who's powerful as Homelander. And probably the best way to do it is trying to prevent that from happening. And it's like, why did Homelander got made? Because he was made in a lab. What if we gave him, give the new Homelander in the 7 and that kind of thing. Make them decent people is making them make sure they are treated well. Have them have welcoming childhood, loving parents. So if they become dicks again, we know it's because it's not through evil corporation stuff. I mean, they have a bloody village from season 2 to just make Ryan have a normal childhood. That got revealed in season 2. Use that, and as a way to do it, and that. But look, I knew Butcher was not going to make it as well. I thought maybe I think a lot of people thought it would be like a 1-2 punch, which would be Homer would go as well as Butcher. But knowing it's that situation of there's no end to his wage. There's no end to it. And that, so they got that, and then the ending of saying goodbye to all the other characters. It's just like, we now know what everyone's doing and how we end off. And I think for like I remember watching Dexter, right, the original series, and that finale came on, and I remember liking the final, the first time I saw it, liking the final season. Now I rewatch it, and I realized the moment they found out Dexter was a serial killer, the show kind of dropped its peak. But the final episode, I was like, what the hell was that? I get that feeling, right? And I think people would feel very unsatisfactory if this whole final episode was like an epilogue. So I good they went for the more big bad boom finale with a 20-minute prologue than sorry, epilogue, then make the epilogue the entire final episode. So I think that was a smart thing to do. I think this is a damn good final episode. I'm sorry, and I know probably a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and there's a reason why this is probably going to be like 16 minutes long. It's a final episode, everybody, fine, it's talk about. And here's the thing about the show, about The Boys. It's not a show that I thought it was amazing fun to end, but I really like this final season. I think they, put it on the head, of stick the landing, not just the final episode, but the final season. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I think that's the case. And I mean, we got Fall Rising, so it's not the end of seeing the boys' world, the world of the boys, but it'll be quite interesting to see if the general audience care about spin-offs of this world, knowing that the main show's done. But yeah. Anyway, if you've seen the show, seen the season, seen the final episode, comment below and let me know your thoughts.